It's all about the game, and how you play it. All about control, and if you can take it.
They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Well, allow me to serve you this offering. After 3 episodes worth of WWF games with mixed results, which isn't anything new to hear if you're talking about their shows currently, it's time to turn the channel to their biggest competition they ever had, both in the ratings and in the gaming. WCW nWo Revenge was the direct sequel to the equally popular World Tour, but it arguably surpassed its predecessor in more ways than one. It was developed by the tag team of Aki and Asmic Ace and published by THQ solely for the Nintendo 64 because no 32-bit system could handle this amount of revenge. This game was released in 1998 to North America on October 26th and Europe on November 30th. Support goes up to 4 players, and the ESRB rates this game an E for everyone. Huh? We're not one to have our N64 games in the box, so all we have is this here cartridge. But you aren't missing much, as it's the same shit with Hollywood Hogan and Kevin Nash staring down Bill Goldberg intensely, while Raven is just standing there thinking of his own signature catchphrase. What about me? What about Raven? There isn't anything else here other than to point out that the main competition Revenge faced this year was from fucking Warzone. Jesus Christ, they've got a lot to live up for. Being better than this won't be too hard, but by how much is the real question. All I hope for is getting my own kind of revenge after playing this crap. I just want to preference this by saying that my experience with N64 wrestling games is minimal. I grew up with the SmackDown vs. Raw series that was fun in its own way until 2K got their hands on it, but this intro is getting me hyped for what's ahead. It's hot. It's live. It's Crash. Crash? No idea what that means, but it wouldn't take long to change that C to a T. Showing the graphics and gameplay is already in stark contrast to showing mere highlights from programming. That's when you know a company has more confidence in the product they're showing. And after another standoff between Hollywood and Sting where they do the cliche anime thing, we can go seek revenge onto whomever we choose. Quickly heading into an exhibitional singles match, we can take a look at the stacked roster. It has one of the largest that you could find at the time, with most of your favorite WCW stars, with a couple exceptions. Like we've got
Hogan must focus on Sting. WCW sucks. Hold 2. Arm bar.
Disco fever. Yeah, 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 yeah. American males. American males.
Self high five.
My name is Finley, and I love to fight.
And this guy that you might remember as Crush. You also got these other fictional factions with creative and maybe problematic wrestler stereotypes, but you also have Aki-Man. Heard a lot about this dude. And this is a different point I'll address later, but who would do this to the Stinger? Who did he have to piss off? But anyway, I've got to go with Roddy Piper because
You do not throw rocks at a man who's got a machine gun!
and he'll go against the Sub-Zero knockoff. You remember Glacier? It wasn't a bad idea to capitalize on Mortal Kombat, but dumping tons of money into those snow and effects was classic WCW wasting money. You know, somebody must have found the remaining funds since they're using it for Sting these days. The entrances are a product of their time, to say the least. It comes in 2 parts, where you start at the entrance ramp, then transition to the ring. Before you could have the full shebang in one sitting, you had to compensate somewhere, so I'll give that a pass. What doesn't get a pass is the lack of recognizable music. Granted, I don't remember what most of their themes sounded like, but I know it didn't sound anything like this. And it's the same for every wrestler just about, so you're not going to hear any classics like I can only hope that these sacrifices were made to focus on what goes on inside the squared circle. One of the things the Akiasmic Ace games are well remembered for is the grapple system, and it goes like this. The A button can perform a grapple while B can do striking attacks. You can hold the buttons down longer to perform stronger grapples or striking attacks, resulting in different and powerful moves, but it could leave you open for a brief moment. While in a grapple, you can use the D-pad to do various moves that your chosen character can pull off, which you might not know exactly until you do them, but they'll hopefully pack the punch needed to give your opponent a good blow to their spirit bar. Well, ring-a-ding-ding, motherfucker. I forgot to say, but you can choose the match stipulations before the entrances, as well as the arena you want to battle in. I kept no DQs and interferences on, which led to the Macho Man coming to the ring around the 4-minute mark to attack me. This is Super Brawl 7 again, on a much smaller scale. Once you beat them up to some degree, they'll exit the ring and let the match continue, and we'll do the same when talking about the controls. The C buttons do a number of things, but their primary use is for up to climb in and out of the ring, right to change focus, down to run, and left to flip an opponent around when he's on the mat. It'd be funny if there was a designated flippy shit button. Perhaps we'll see that in the new AEW game. R is used for blocking and countering, and L is used for pinning. That's the most peculiar button I think I've encountered for pinning. Makes you wonder how it came about behind the scenes. Okay, nerds. We need to place the pin on this here controller. What are we thinking? How about the L button because the opponent is laid down on the mat? I like it. You're fired. It was my idea the whole time, and don't you forget it. Those are the basics, and I gotta say, this control scheme is really good. I'm able to execute moves and do them easily without having to mash buttons in confusion like I've had to with other games. Honestly, you didn't need me to tell you how the gameplay for this game worked, as it's very pick up and play style, where you can get the hang of it in a heartbeat. But then again, you're watching my video, so you're pretty much effed already. Though I may praise the overall control, it isn't perfect. There's a few faults. For one thing, it doesn't look like I can attack my opponent when he's getting up. Granted, he can't do the same to me, but it doesn't make much sense unless you're countering, which never happens. I also hate the fact that you get punished for doing more repetitive moves that it benefits your opponent's meter. It's commonplace with most games of the era, but I don't like it. Also, is it just me, or does moving the character with the D-pad feel weird? I didn't say my criticisms were justified. Still, it's so odd to hold the controller like this. Somebody forgot to tell the Martians that we don't got 3 hands. If you're wondering what the C-Stick does, it's mainly how to do taunts. But it does have a more important thing it can do when your meter is built up. When said spirit meter is filled to a heart-pumping red, it can also flash the word special, which means you can do your signature or finishing maneuvers. And by doing a strong grapple and tapping the stick, you get to perform your moves for as long as the word stays on screen. But even then, it may not be enough to get the win. What's with the cartoon referee? Well, at least he isn't gonna fuck on me!
Perry Saturn!
If anything, you'll just have to perform more unique moves in order to weaken your opponent enough and eventually pick up the win. I won! I won? Yes! Finally! I won the opening match! Yes! Yes! I won! I won the freaking match! Hey, Cody! Kiss my ass, you son of a bitch! I hate you! Loser. Alright, we're off to a good start. The game plays great. Now let's see what other match types we have. I see tag team as the only other match type in the exhibition mode, which is no good. The only other match types are labeled under Special Match, but again there's only 2 match types there in Handicap and Battle Royal. Having only 4 match types to choose from is a little disappointing, as it wasn't a step up from World Tour, and even Warzone had more match types comparably when you had more players. Granted, you can change up the rules for each match type, but still it wouldn't hurt if they put in a cage match if they couldn't do war games, or a different stipulation match. I don't care if they weren't prevalent in the WCW then, but it would have made the game feel more like a step up. We'll just take what we got and start up a tag match. I chose my team to be Goldberg and Bret Hart because they work well together, injuring one another, and they'll be facing Los Guerreros back when they could be best described as the pinky and the brain of tag teams.
One is a genius, the other's insane.
I was actually quite surprised with how fast the match lasted. I didn't even need to tag Bret in, as I got the job done by myself in less than 3 minutes. And I know Goldberg worked well in quick matches, but holy crap, man. I can't help but feel this is a little too easy. I better check the settings. Oh, for fuck's sake. Ha! You're saying I'm a piece of shit? You're playing this game on easy! Say it with me, everybody! You suck! You suck! To rectify my error, I replayed the matches again to show I have what it takes to hold my own, and the only real differences I encountered was that the matches were a bit longer. It was tougher to get Glacier to stay down for the count, but giving him enough nut shots with the noggin will do any man in. It was even more strenuous redoing the tag match, as each of our partners kept getting in the ring and screwing with the finishes. It got so bad that the whole thing ended in a draw. Guess that's what you get when you have warriors that like to... Battle Royal was somewhat interesting, as you choose participants from 4 to 40 and choose what stipulation gets them eliminated if you don't want over-the-top rope. So I suppose you could have a Fatal 4-Way or Gauntlet Eliminator type matches if you configure things the right way, but I'm sticking with what a Battle Royal usually means. You remember when any wrestlers couldn't knock their opponent over the top rope or else they'd get disqualified? God, WCW was stupid sometimes. If not all the time. So, like a dumbass, I went with having 40 participants and started with the group that would become the Radicals. And I thought that would be an exciting start, but then I quickly realized how much of the work I'd have to do. Carrying all these men is not easy. I did most of the eliminations for a good chunk of it, but I ran into a snag when I got eliminated and came back as a lean guy, and I couldn't eliminate some of my heavier opponents. I had to resort to eliminating myself on more than one occasion to get some sort of advantage. But around halfway in, I think I got eliminated too many times that I couldn't control my designated character anymore. It was either that or me forgetting that the Z button existed. The manual says it can toggle between manual and CPU control during a battle royal, but again I can only speculate as I have no idea what happened. All I know is I'm out of the match, so I'll have to sit and watch how the rest of this plays out. It almost took an hour to get to the final few. It doesn't surprise me some of the more popular stars came out last and remained over the mid-card. Seeing Sting's entrance from the rafters was awesome, but unfortunately he didn't last long. Instead, the match ended in the most WCW way possible when Rick Steiner got dragged out by the Giant, handing Kevin Nash the win. Paul, why would you do that? You were feuding with them at this point. Guess we better stick him in a handicap match with a few members of the Wolfpack, because that only makes sense, right? I mean, I like draws when it furthers a story, but they're the worst in wrestling games. With all the match types gone through, this leaves only 3 other options left. I'm starting to think 64 bits wasn't what it was advertised to be. Options we looked at briefly, but you can turn a few things on and off like the ref or realism if you want to make an iceberg bleed, or toggle with the control inputs or view scores. There is a score system that the game will tally at the end of a match to give you an idea on how you performed, but I don't think we gave a about high scores at this point. Here's a new one, Costume Change. This is where you can change a wrestler's attire, which makes sense if you want to keep with the times as best you can, but it would also explain why Hollywood is donning the red and yellow, DDP is part of the Wolfpack, and Sting is a big piece of bubblegum. Surprised not to see a Ka mode on here, but I'm not going to make it a big deal because from what I saw with Warzone, I don't think they could have made it any better. I changed Sting back to his Wolfpack colors to get him properly ready for the last mode of the game. Championship, as the name suggests, is where you can go for any of the titles that were around. And knowing how each belt has had their highs and more memorable lows, I had to go for the big gold belt, and Starrcade is the appropriate arena to fight for it. This mode is kinda like a tournament of sorts where you fight your way to the top in order to have an opportunity for the belt, and I think I picked the right icon for the job as I start with the biggest advantage with my bat. It didn't really help much as when you get hit, you'll immediately lose it to the depths of the mat, but it can give you early momentum if you land some devastating shots. So I was able to make it through British Bulldog and Scott Hall without real fear of losing, but then I hit a literal brick wall in the form of the Giant. He broke all the rules I knew when having to take down an opponent. It was like no matter what I did, he wouldn't stay down at all. I really should have tried to grab some weapons from the crowd, but that didn't cross my mind, and with a choke slam later, I just gave in. You know, this would have been more fitting if he was the champ, making it feel like more of an appropriate final boss, but instead we got this nobody. I would have appreciated Akiman over this doofus. Revenge, though cold on a few features, was in fact one of the hottest games on the N64 in '98, receiving high praise and selling close to 2 million copies. It even won Fighting Game of the Year from the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences, who organize the DICE Awards these days. But even with all that acclaim, this would be the last WCW game to have Aki and Asmic Ace's involvement, with THQ getting a new license with the WWF. WCW, meanwhile, found a new partner in Electronic Arts. That's one way to kill your video game momentum. It must have been fun growing up during the Monday Night Wars. Fans and pros alike could battle it out and argue over which brand was the best. And it didn't have to be about the in-ring product either. It was other things like games that resonated with us wrestling fans. And this game was the best argument for WCW. 1998 was one of the peak years in World Championship Wrestling, though the Federation was slowly climbing its way back up a rating slump. But WCW's long reign on top could be signified by this game alone. It has one of the best grapple systems ever that's easy to learn and fun to play, redeeming all the lost features that we should have, but didn't get for one reason or another. The game is still fun, don't get me wrong, but I would have liked to have more to do. They sacrifice quantity over quality, which I've always argued is a better way to go, but having this little to do, especially when the last game had the same amount to do, just makes it inexcusable to not have more matches to play with. But in the end, I can see why this game is considered a classic. It's the best you could get with WCW, and the good times wouldn't last long as the WWF would be the ones who ultimately got true revenge. By the way, though AEW says they're going for No Mercy vibes, if the AEW game is subtitled with a vengeance, I think we'll know where the true influence came from. If you don't mind the lack in features and want a genuinely fun experience on the N64, you can't go wrong here. We're about to break a record on this show 4 episodes in. This game gets 4 stars. If anybody needs me, I'll be in my personal trailer. I got free pot pies and some Mountain Dew. Free pot pies and some Mountain Dew. Free pot pies and some Mountain Dew. Mountain Dew and some pot pies.